Hey everyone, welcome back to the Meme Team podcast, where we dissect the marketing strategies creating breakout cultural moments. I'm Sonia, and this week I'm welcoming Nina Lee, an award-winning filmmaker who also did the social media for Sinners, which we'll talk about later, and HBO Max. Welcome, Nina.
Excited to be here.
Well, the numbers for how many people have uninstalled ChatGPT have come out, and it's about 295% of users after the Department of Defense deal. TechCrunch has reported this surge in drop-off, which is kind of amazing.
I'm still using both, but I
Mhm.
think that it's important that none of us rely too heavily on AI
Mhm.
because then we become I don't know, the same anonymous figures of these AI instruments and not being ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. That actually reminds me that the Pope recently said that that the priests, when they're writing the sermon, to not use ChatGPT or any AI,
Yeah.
because it removes the humanness to the sermon. And I thought it
Yeah.
was like really interesting. I assume that means that the fathers had been using ChatGPT to some
Yeah,
extent.
for
Um,
sure.
but but yeah, I agree. That's like one of the, it's supposed to be one of the most human moments of like, people, going to sermon and,
Mhm.
listening to the Father speak. And if that's pretty much the one thing that he's writing on a weekly basis, then why would he, use AI to like help him?
I mean, honestly, I'm a preacher's kid. It's not that surprising that they were using AI and
Hmm.
ChatGPT to write their sermons because a lot of times people steal sermons, they buy sermons so that they don't have to do it.
Oh,
But it
interesting.
is, yeah, so it's not, it's just a new form of something that had been happening. But I
Hmm.
think that because ChatGPT is essentially free and
Right.
it's not theft, it's not sermon stealing, that it probably was just taking precedence in a way that no one had ever seen, and it was like, "Hey, we gotta put the human emotion back
Yeah.
into this. Like, this ain't gonna
God, I
work."
mean, yeah. If religion is moving away from that and human emotion, then what do they have left to offer? you know?
Exactly.
That's wild. Okay, and then the other thing I want to talk about is that Netflix has opened up its inventory to Amazon audiences. We had previously talked about how Amazon has set up their own like dashboard and information of like demographics, names, like information that people have for what sort of Amazon content they like on Amazon Prime, but then also what they're shopping for, right? So to make it a little bit easier for people to target them directly, which at the time I thought was a really good idea, because if they're bringing in ads, you at least want to get ads that you want to see
Right.
and not be completely random. Kind of like I always say, it's like Hulu is giving you like random, ads entirely. So it's really interesting that Netflix has now opened up that inventory to Amazon, I assume, so that they can also start creating their own ads in house in the future, since now the free tier has been getting more ads for people.
I saw this coming.
Hmm.
You could already kind of see it coming because, when you're watching any show on Prime, when you pause it, I'm sure you've seen it where it has,
Yeah.
things that have been in, your shopping cart, and now it's
Hmm.
on your TV, and it's like, "Scan this and go ahead and buy it," and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna collab with some other
Hmm.
streaming, and this is going to be a thing across all of them." So when I heard about it, I just wasn't that surprised that it was happening with Netflix because Netflix is the biggest streaming service, and
Hmm.
Amazon is Amazon.
But
Mhm.
yeah, at least, it is kind of based on your car and your previous, shopping,
Mhm.
like what you have bought before. And, obviously when you have such a trove of information that, is easier to access through these partnerships. I mean, more and more of these streamers are gonna, try doing that.
Mhm.
It is interesting, because if you think about Hulu, kind of who they're, mixed in with, right? It's like the whole Disney network.
Yeah.
They could have better they could have better ads. But
Would
anyway,
not better any everything,
that's true.
but that's, a whole whole 'nother conversation, but, their interface, their ads, it's all
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah, it's it's wild that, just
Disney
even with,
really doesn't
like
care. I don't think they
I
care.
know, yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
My last job was actually I worked for Hulu through an agency, and
Mhm,
Disney was like, "We don't want any more agencies. We only want Disney employees," and they let the agency go, and yeah, that was it, and it's just like, I don't think Disney realizes, like, I don't know, the state of marketing and agencies and everything. They're still relying on an antiquated system,
mhm.
and things are changing, and they gotta get with it a little bit better.
Yeah, which will be interesting to see, right? Because the new CEO that they hired is based on the parks and like the cruises and all that, right?
Yep.
So shifting away from the content side, even though, the
Mhm.
president is the content, person. So hopefully they will have some of that.
Right.
But, content creation doesn't necessarily mean that you also then have the ad network and the ad uh
Exactly.
like know how to like fix that side of it, nor does it
Mhm.
mean that you will fix the platform, right? Because I mean the biggest thing is the platform itself. Like how do you fix it? How do you make it a little bit better? Like now that you do have more information about the things that we like and don't like,
Mhm.
it should be
Mhm.
able to like fix it to make it seem as if like you know what I'm gonna watch and not
Yeah,
watch.
and don't lose what I'm watching
Yeah.
every time. Like, what are we uh-uh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the topics. So I want to talk about Claude launching a community ambassadors program.
Mhm.
Basically, Claude has been on it ever since, this whole thing happened with OpenAI and the Department of Defense. They've just been launching, program after program that is essentially showing people or trying to show people that we are the human AI, the ethical AI that cares about you, that cares about creativity and wants to help you as a thinking partner instead of doing the work for you. And I think that this is one of the ways that they're able to do it is by trying to rely on their community of everybody that's interested in Claude and Claude Code. And create an ambassador program that can then demonstrate what the platform can do, right?
Mhm.
Which I think is brilliant because, like, a lot of the times, a lot of these companies have a hard time showing, particularly with AI, right? Like, that's why we're getting all these, like, really basic, ads from like ChatGPT, saying, like, this is what you can do a
Mhm.
travel plan, do like a recipe, do like a fitness, plan, because most people aren't using AI to the point that it actually is making a difference in their lives or that they see that it's better than Google, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're just going to search, you might as well just go on Google, which already has all your information anyway. Why would you try this new thing that you
Yeah.
hear that, everybody is like balking against, right? Um so by getting your users that love your product to be ambassadors for what you're building is like a great way to kind of streamline and go direct to new consumers. And so what we're seeing here is people applying to be Claude Code ambassadors,
Mhm.
which will allow them to kind of show off like what they're doing, but then also do like meetups. So they'll get like a little budget, they'll get, pre-release features and be part of like builders councils. They'll get like funding, swag, API credits, and then get promoted through Anthropic. In order to show off what Claude can do. And I think this is a great way because we're already seeing, people online, show what
Mhm.
they're doing, like show, with like Claude Code. I've seen like demos of people putting together like infographics and like marketing stuff. Here's like what you can do with like content with like Claude. And then obviously, the developer community is like full in on Claude Code right now because it's helping them code a lot faster than they ever have before. So they really want to tap into this network and let people bring in their own people from that. So, kind of like what I'm seeing from this is that they're wanting to build community instead of infrastructure, which is going to show that they really, do care about their users. So, Nina, have you seen this? Like, would love to know your thoughts.
Also, no. I really I really be in, like, a film bubble for real. Like, but I am well aware of what Claude is. I think that it's a pretty great strategy to have. I think right now everybody wants to be influencers and ambassadors
Mhm.
and feel like they have something over other people. And when they become the influencer, the ambassador, it gets people intrigued. And so
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea. It's a great
Um,
way, the people that don't know about Claude, it's a great way to meet people where they're at.
Yeah. What I really like about this is that this is launching around the time that they're growing like exponentially, right?
Mhm,
So their user base has grown 60% since January. Those numbers also came out showing that Claude is like the enterprise AI that most companies are using, right?
mhm,
Like completely outstripping OpenAI, which was kind of surprising because it's kind of just been a dark horse in this whole thing. And when their
mhm.
Super Bowl ads came out, I was like, oh wow, like, yeah, like I don't get it, like the ads themselves, I didn't like. I like Claude. I understand like the marketing
Yeah,
behind that and everything, but the ads themselves I thought were dumb. And sure enough, when people were polled, only 3% of people said that they were they were good ads, which to me
mhm,
shows that they weren't effective. But then the whole, Department of War thing happened and like the OpenAI backlash with, them hopping on to have that deal take over.
yeah,
And it just showed that like Anthropic was like fighting for you, the user. If you're going to choose a horse in this battle, you probably want to go for like Anthropic and Claude, right? Because OpenAI is the
right,
big like bully. They're, like the Goliath to the David. So, people like an underdog. And we've seen that with the number of people that have
mhm,
started downloading it, right? And I
mhm,
think that this is great because they're taking this ambassador model from, Red Bull and Nike, which usually has like campus brand managers and like community runners, and then applying it to AI, which is kind of, novel, right? It hasn't been done. And it's funny because it's like it's kind of positioned itself more as like the cool brand that like you find out about through like a friend, right? So this
mhm,
referral network is probably going to work a lot better and be more effective than having Claude
yeah,
come out and tell you like, "Oh, here's
of
why we
course,
like did those ads and here's like what Claude, does." Because it allows, other people to show you their own like work, what they have done to fix and improve what they're already working on. And it shows you
mhm,
something that you're more likely to care about because all
mhm,
of a sudden it's not just like, oh, it's that weird ad about like, the fitness guy, making
mhm,
fun of OpenAI. It's like, oh, someone like built this thing with Claude code that like he never would have been able to build before because he's more of an ideas person versus an engineer, right? And now all these like ideas people are able to build things that they never would have been able to
mhm,
before because they weren't engineers.
right.
So I think it's like super cool. And I think it's gonna be like super effective.
Yeah, I mean, it really just goes back to word of mouth being the
Yeah.
best marketing strategy there is,
Mhm.
which is something I'm gonna talk about when we talk about Sinners, but, like, a
Yeah.
lot of times I think that word of mouth is just, like, this super organic thing, and it's not, there's still marketing and strategy behind it. It's just made to feel that way so that when, like you said, someone tells their neighbor about Claude, they feel like it's this really, like, tangible thing someone told me, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think very smart. Because
Yes.
AI also feels very like something that's not tangible, and
Mhm.
so putting a regular person as the face of AI, it just makes people want to try it because it feels a lot more, like, tangible and concrete.
It also makes it more human, right?
More
Which is
human,
like
and that's not a big word, but that's essentially, yeah, more human.
Yeah, 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 which I think is like a really smart play because right now, so many people are scared about AI coming to steal their jobs and
Yeah.
coming to like take over. And I mean, frankly, AI is not there yet. The fact that, we kind of talk about it in that way, it just reminds me of the Ben Affleck clip that went viral a
Mhm.
couple weeks ago when he's talking about how a lot of these companies are talking about AI in that way to justify how much money they're spending and to justify the
Mhm.
valuations of the rounds that they're trying to raise as opposed to where the AI actually is, right? And the thing is
Right.
like when you use AI, you can see that, right? You can see that it can't really write very well and it can't
Yeah.
come up with new ideas, right? Um
Mhm.
so
They're also using it for mass layoffs, but the layoffs aren't because of AI. So a lot of
yeah.
companies are saying that it's AI related, but it's literally not.
Mhm.
We really don't have any idea of why some of these companies are laying people off to the extent that they are. And it's not AI because, as you've said, AI is actually not there yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I do, yeah, that brings to mind the, Jack Dorsey, right, laying off a bunch of
yeah,
people, from
yep,
Block,
exactly.
and I think what has come out afterwards, after the pushback that he got trying to say that it was because AI is making things, faster,
Perfect.
people were like, actually, this has to be related to all the people that you hired during COVID and the whole idea of you overhiring, right?
Yes.
And then he went and came out and said, yes, that is part of it, right? But there's a reason why Jack Dorsey doesn't want to admit that he has overhired because it makes him
Yes.
look as if he is not a good leader.
Yeah.
And that's also a thing that came out after, Elon went and, fired all those people from Twitter.
Say
I'm
what
sure some of those people were probably not, there like because they needed to be, but I mean, we all know Twitter isn't where it was.
right.
So clearly some of those people were needed. So maybe he did overfire. So there is going to have to be some balance here between the folks
Mhm.
that do need to be at a company because they're actually making a difference, and then this whole idea that
Yeah.
like AI is going to come and like take over your job. But I do think
Yeah.
what that does mean is that if you work in tech, you are going to have to know how to use AI, learn what you need to do in order to, amplify the work that you're already doing, and then cut back
Mhm.
on the things that take too much time. Like that's what AI is good at, right? That's what I use AI
Yeah.
for.
Oh, even as, like, a filmmaker, like, as a
Mhm.
writer, I'm not using it to write my scripts, but I
Mhm.
remember I was doing a pitch deck, and the company, it was actually Hulu, I wanted a character breakdown of all 10 characters, and they wanted it, like, the next day,
Mhm.
and so I used AI to help me come up with, like, a synopsis of that, and so it's like, no, I would never, ever use it to write a script, because why? But something like that, absolutely. I think as
Mhm.
writers, we can use that to our benefit, and then you go back in and you edit. But, like, that's a lot of work. Yeah, I think more artists should be open to the idea of using it that way.
Couple lessons here. When you have organic momentum, invest in your community and not paid ads because you're going to get far more reach from that organic traffic than you ever are from paid ads. Not even sure how many people have actually seen the paid ads, aside from if they hadn't been at Super Bowl, right? And even then, most people probably even can't remember the company to like the ads, like to put it together.
Mhm.
But this is going to have farther reach because you have actual people coming to their own community and telling you about Claude, what they're doing with it, how much they like
Yeah.
it, what they're, building, and then going
Mhm.
from there. And then also
Yeah.
think that it's super smart for them to not just go after developers because
Mhm.
developers, I mean, honestly, they've probably been talking about it far more than, the rest of us. But to
Mhm.
have, marketers, content creators, maybe filmmakers, other people that are using Claude in a way that, looks good for Claude is far more
Mhm.
beneficial than just kind of relating it back to Claude Code, because that might seem too abstract and technical. And
Mhm.
if you can get people that aren't that technical telling you about how they've become technical, it's going to have farther reach and make Claude look even better for people.
So let's talk about Timothée Chalamet versus the ballet and the opera. Did you see that interview?
I did, and I saw the clip.
For those that didn't see it, basically he said, "I don't want to be working in a ballet or opera or things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive," even though nobody cares about it anymore. So the
Harsh.
clip went really viral. People were really, really upset about this, especially
Hmm.
because, like, with Misty Copeland, she was a part of the marketing strategy
Hmm.
for Marty Supreme. So he
Hmm.
sent her Marty Supreme gear and she like wore it while doing like her ballet. And so it was like, wow, like you knew that this just happened and then you turned around and kind of like dissed what she does and what everyone in the ballet and opera do. I do get what he was saying, but we can get
Yeah,
into
I
that.
think he said it wrong, and like the rage bait clip, which is the whole
Mhm,
point, right? That, people just
mhm,
kind of went and cut that specifically, was made to just get people angry about that.
mhm,
But the whole interview itself, I mean, was him kind of speaking to he doesn't want movie theaters to go out of business or to become irrelevant the way that opera and ballet has. And I think he
exactly.
is right about that, right? Where
Yeah.
there's only certain people that go to ballet or opera anymore. It doesn't seem
Mhm.
accessible. It doesn't seem as if,
No.
it's made for, normal, regular people to go to. That's the angle that like I saw it, as, and
Yeah,
then,
me too.
the New York Times then came out and wrote and said, this is like, what he meant. And like, it's actually
Mhm.
true. I saw today another, a ballet, performer, came out on TikTok and said he is right. We do need to be more accessible. We do need to go after people that aren't our target audience in order to
Mhm.
expand and make ourselves relevant once again.
Yeah.
But yes, the way that he said it was a little bit more flippant than he should have done. And he could have
Totally.
been more clear about what he was trying to say, right? But I think he has been talking about this during Oscar campaigning. He was talking to like Matthew McConaughey. And I think he kind of just like, went with the vibe as opposed to trying to
Yeah.
get the message
Well.
across. And I think this
Mhm.
is one of those things that is just showing how important it is to figure out how to say what you want to say.
Right. But I think it's also, like, I think people are being really, like, hard on Timothy right now
Yeah.
during the Oscar campaign. I
Hmm.
know my timeline is full of filmmakers and film enthusiasts and that, and everyone was just like,
Hmm.
"F Timothy, like, he doesn't really care
Yeah.
about the art. How could you?" And I was just like, "Guys, this is what he said is real." And
Yeah.
every day we talk about this movie tanking and this and that, and it's
Mhm.
like it has happened before in other arts, and that's literally just what he's saying, that he does not want this to happen with theaters. So I made this tweet not too long ago because everyone's always telling me I need to get on TikTok.
Mhm.
I need to become a content creator, like, and right now, the only people I know that are, like, really making money, it is the people that are doing well on social media. But I always was like, "No, I'm an artist. I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna." I had a little bit of, like, an elitist view, and so
Mhm.
I was rewatching, sorry, I can go off on tangents,
No,
but I
no,
was
this is good.
rewatching Singing in the Rain. It's a film about the silent film era, and then when talkies came out, you could finally have sound and sound
Mhm.
design, and all of this became a thing. And so this super famous actress was like, "No, no, no. I'm not doing a talkie. I only make silent films." And so she refused to conform, and her career just pretty much vanished. And the people like Gene Kelly and those that did adjust to, like, the talkies, they're they thrived. Their careers took off, and the talkies became an even bigger deal than the silent film era. Do we as filmmakers need to become more encompassant of the TikTok and the content creation? Because if we don't, we end up like the character and kind of just, like, go off into the abyss of the unknown because we haven't tried to figure out how to adapt. So long story short, I feel like Timothy was saying that same thing. If the movie theaters do not adapt, then it could become this thing like the ballet and the opera. And it's not a diss to those things, but theaters are just this huge relevant thing, and we want to keep it that way.
I mean, honestly, just hearing that makes me realize that he's not just talking about theaters, right? He's talking about
Mm.
movie stars, right? His whole
Yeah,
Marty Supreme campaign is that he dove headfirst into being a content creator in order to
content
get
creator.
his film Marty Supreme in front of people that never would have seen it before, right? Who's going
It
to come
worked.
out and see who's going to come out and see an independent film about a ping pong player
Yeah.
that's like, really small, that came out in the indie film festivals, and then he wanted to have a general populace come out and watch it. And so his whole marketing campaign is him being like, I know that I'm the star vehicle behind this. I know that people will come watch me. So I need to put myself front and center in front of all the places that they're used to, which is on
Yep.
TikTok, which is on TV, which is on, creating merch, which is doing this, Zoom video and all the stuff that like he has done. You can relay back to that. And it's really funny for him to be getting all these people shitting on him when he is walking the walk and actually
Yeah.
trying to change what he can do as a movie star to get
Mhm.
people to come see movies, movies that
Exactly.
people wouldn't see, right? And the thing is, he doesn't need to do this, right? Like nobody has been doing this. He'll be fine. He's going to be in Dune this year, like which everyone's going to go
Right.
watch because it's Dune, right? He's
Yeah.
obviously not going to do as much of the marketing campaign that he did
Yeah.
for
He
Marty
doesn't
Supreme
have
and for
to.
Dune because he doesn't have to, right? Because that the movie studio is going to put the budget behind that, right? But
Mhm.
for Marty Supreme, he knew, hey, the movie studio is not going to put budget behind this, right? And if they are going to put budget behind it, then they'll give me more if I am also putting myself out there front and center, right? And, shout out to A24 because they are one of the studios that's actually putting a little bit more money and a little bit more creativity behind the movies that they're trying to promote. But
Mhm.
indie films are still indie films, right? And I have loved his entire marketing campaign because he's going to the people, much as like we're talking about like the Claude ambassadors,
Yeah,
right?
I
He's
was
going
gonna say
direct to
it's
them.
right back to the Claude thing. I think that that's just what's working right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he invited people out to come to see the movie with him. He had the merch shops and he was creating all these moments to create buzz, like, 2 months out from like the movie because he knew that he was competing against Wicked for Good and Avatar, right? Those were the two tentpole films that were coming out in December. Where people are, tripping up on it is he's basically has been saying he wants to win that Oscar. Like
Yeah.
he has been a little like, a little arrogant. Yes, but also he's backing it up, right? Like, look at
Yeah,
his filmography, look at everything
right.
that he's
Okay.
done. And I think people want to cut him down, which is kind of
They
pissing
do.
me off because
It's
it's like his movie has like crossed $100 million like in America, right? This isn't even like international. This is in America, which has never happened before. Actually, one other movie, I forget what it is, but one other movie has done that. And his movie, Marty Supreme, has crossed that threshold, right? So
Mhm.
let the
But
man
it's
talk.
number 1 for A24, and so, like, what he's done is
Exactly.
really, like, remarkable.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. I know that you said that you hear people on your timeline just kind of like,
yeah, they were so upset with him. I remember they were even upset, a lot of people on my timeline, because they were like, "Oh, he just adopted this, like, rap persona for Marty
right.
Supreme, and it was just a marketing strategy. It's not really who he is, and now he's back on his, like, white boy
Mhm.
phase now that Marty Supreme has already come out." But there's also, like, so many videos of this man in high school, like, doing
Ah,
dances to
I
Soulja
know.
Boy, and it's like, "No, guys, he's dating Kylie Jenner, and he
Yeah.
loves her a lot." It's like, no, I think
Mhm.
he's always had this, like, urban side to him,
Mhm.
and he saw that this was the film that he could express that with. Like, he
Mhm.
can't come out with a rap song for Dune
Yeah.
or Willy Wonka, like, he can't do that, but he's with A24,
Mhm.
he's he had more freedom to, like, kind of be and do what he wants, and he explored that, and yeah, he doesn't have to always wear that mask. We don't
Mhm.
ask other artists like, "Oh, you did this for this marketing, you need to stay that way."
Mhm.
No, and so I
Mhm.
don't know, I just feel like people are being a little hard on him. That's
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
'cause
yeah.
that he can back it up. He's a great actor, and he really does care about the art
Mhm.
end of the day, and he's just trying to figure out how do we keep this thing alive.
Mhm. I do want to shout out that the ballet and the opera have taken this as a marketing opportunity for themselves in order to promote themselves, which, good for them. You should use it for that, right? Because you probably weren't being talked about before anyway, which was his goddamn point, right? Um, and so now I saw that, there's a ballet that's using Timothy as like a coupon code for like tickets. The press release thing I think is too much. Like make fun of him a little bit, say like, hey, yes, maybe people don't pay him as much attention to us. You know what? Shout out Timothy for calling attention to us
Mhm.
for the first time in how long, right? I did see other people posting on Twitter, which is, kind of ironic, saying like, hey, go watch this like movie about like ballet or go watch this show about ballet. And like people are like, you get the irony, right? That you're telling people to go watch a TV show instead of
And not
going to watch
show.
the actual ballet. Um, which is kind of another point that he was trying to make.
Right, yeah.
So all
Go
in
watch center
all,
stage. What?
yeah, 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 exactly. So I think all in all, this kind of led to a bigger flurry than I think it needed to. I will be bummed if it kind of does affect his Oscar campaigning, just because I think he deserves it for the movie, for the film. I think this whole hubbub, probably did grow out of proportion because of the
Yeah.
Oscar campaigning.
Yeah, for
And it's just like looking to cut down anybody at this point.
yeah.
Um, but I do think that he is right in speaking to,
A little
movie
bit.
movie theaters, to movie stars, to everybody in the industry to say like, hey, we're at an inflection point. Like movies are not doing well right now. We
Mhm.
just saw the sell of like WB to Paramount, and everyone is already, expecting things to go more downhill. So if a movie star is out there and trying to put his reputation on the line, and it has been, right, with his own work, his own movie, then maybe they should all listen to him and like take his advice.
That simple. It really, really is. I don't know if he's gonna win the Oscar though, but he's gonna
Yeah,
win one
no.
one day.
Yeah. He will
He's
win
gonna
one
win
day.
one day
Mhm, mhm,
for
mhm.
sure. I don't know
Uh,
if this is the one,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it's coming.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, we'll talk about, Michael B. Jordan,
Yeah.
later.
The lessons from this is adaptability is essential.
So 2 lessons from me. One is, for Timothée Chalamet and anybody else that kind of like is putting themselves out there, is to kind of think about how you're saying things because he has said this point before. It's just this time he said it a little more harshly than he
Mhm.
has before. Um, and the second one is when you do get, attention in this way, use it to the ultimate, the way that ballet and opera are using it now, like use this as an opportunity to promote yourself, which they have been, but I
Mhm.
think use it with humor and not to also then try to tear him down for all these things that are getting taken out of context because of like the drama and the rage baitiness that is happening because of it.
Mhm.
So my second topic is to talk about Twitter launching exclusive threads as part of a broader update to creator subscriptions. Basically, now creators can kind of lock the end of a tweet thread behind a paywall while the first few posts are public. So in line, you'll see a subscribe button. They just want more creators to kind of come on the platform. This is on top of them launching their newsletters a couple weeks ago as well. So kind of like this huge emphasis on bringing creators back onto the platform, which I think is really smart, right? Because Twitter is still the place where everybody comes to talk,
Mhm.
and they're kind of taking on a couple of like, different platforms right now, right? So the
Mhm.
newsletter platform was kind of, coming out to compete against Substack. And honestly, even I've felt a difference. Like I've been posting essays on both Substack and Twitter, and I'm getting more, views from people on Twitter. I have a bigger audience. They're really trying to prop that up. So they're showing, more newsletters to people,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing that on my Twitter, like other people talking about how, oh my God, now there's so much great content on here that I can't read everything, is one. The flip side is that a lot of people are also complaining that there's AI slop a lot more, right? So people are relying on ChatGPT and Claude to write the essays for them. They're pushing for something to show like, hey, this was written with AI, or this is, not quite like this is AI slop, but something that shows that it has been written with AI, as a way to kind of separate out who's writing things versus who's using AI to like, put out content. This is also right after they launched this label for paid partnerships to show what is actual sponsored content versus like content that people are, putting out there because they like it or they care. Um, we're seeing, a huge kind of like push in that direction because people want to know that like the content that they're getting on Twitter is actually genuinely coming from people and not just, AI slot machines and like bots, which have completely taken over. You've seen that like people can just pay the $8 and then have their content boosted to the top. So I really hope that that's something that's next on the list to change. The one problem that I see with that is the fact that that was kind of Elon's, like one of his little, ideas. So I think it's gonna be hard for them to switch that until like Elon wants to switch it. So their long form posts have grown 18x in the last 3 months because they have been pushing them. And I think that this is, the next iteration of that is like, how do you get people to share more of their, thoughts on there? I've seen Nikita Bayer post a lot about how what he thinks is like the winning Twitter strategy to grow followers and to, get more attention is to talk about only the things that you would know. I did see some
Mhm.
people say that, is this going to bring in the OnlyFans, ladies on, because it's like you're going to get like subscriber content that's
Yeah.
below the tweet threads, right?
Mhm.
So I wonder if we are going to start seeing more of that type of content on there, though at least it is, paywalled. The mechanism for this is smart because it used to be where you would have to send people to your profile to tell them to subscribe or to go
Mhm.
to, a off platform link. Whereas now, if you're able to put it in line, people can just subscribe to your content like immediately. And so it removes that barrier for people. So I do think it is going to be something that, continues happening. I think people just have to figure out what the best type of content is to put out there. But yeah, we'll see. So, Nina, did you see this? Are you enticed to put some content behind a paywall?
I did see it. I don't know if I'm enticed. I mean, but it could be interesting. I'm all about
Hmm.
finding other ways to make money. I
Hmm.
recently paid for the blue check mark and got literally my first like deposit from Twitter, and I was like, "Oh,
There you
nice."
go. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, if it can work, it'll be interesting to see. We were talking earlier about how I feel like it's also just kind of like a capitalist version of when Twitter had close friends. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
like close friends, but you got to pay for it. It's like, dang, we have to pay for everything now.
Hmm.
But since the money is going directly to the creator, I do think that that's a good thing because Twitter is literally the last when it came to like creators getting paid. And I think they've realized that because their numbers are dropping. And so they're trying to find ways to put money back into creators' pockets.
Speaking to those, payouts, we saw that they did the $1 million prize for the most popular, like, viral newsletter. I think it was a month ago. Um,
Hmm.
I don't actually remember who won, but I think I remember reading and I was like, "Oh, whatever." The other
Yeah,
essays that came out around it, were, far more interesting than the one that actually, like, won,
of
which
course.
says something about, like, their model. They still have some things to figure out, but this does come
Mhm.
at us an interesting time when TikTok just changed owners and, like, creators are trying to figure out what's going on with TikTok. Are the payouts still
Okay.
gonna be similar, or are they changing? Um, Substack is still having, problems trying to bring creators on, right? Substack announced that they were doing ads, right, in order to start bringing in more, potential payouts to creators. Um, Instagram and Reels, like, I'm not sure how those payout structures work, because we don't really hear about them that much. The most interesting thing here is that you're still leaving it to the creator to figure out the best way that they can make money, which is both plus and minuses, right? Because pluses, people get creative, people will figure out what they can do in order to make that money. But negatives, they're probably going to have to wait until somebody bigger explains what they can do,
Yeah,
and then, move forward from there.
totally.
Okay, couple of lessons here. Paywall the punchline. What sort of content can you get behind the paywall, right? Similar to the way that news kind of works right now, right? Where it's like you have, the summary at the top and then at the bottom you have the things that people would
Mhm.
most want to read, right? So that would be like an easy way to kind of do that. But are there like ways that you can do like the written part up top and then like video or like images on the bottom, kind of like the OnlyFans, model that people were talking about. We're unsure how things are going to work. They can be creating the best creator tools, but if the platform continues to be polarizing, people are going to stay off of it, right? Though I will say, anecdotally, I am starting to see a lot of my Twitter mutuals, from before the mass exodus, come back.
Same. I think it might take a little bit more time given
Mhm.
who the owner of Twitter is.
I am hopeful that
Me
things might change.
too. It's my favorite social media platform.
I
So
know, I know. People are like, "You're still on it," and I'm like,
Oh my
"Yes."
gosh, all the time. I had this one kid tell me, he was like, "That's how I know you old." And I was like, "'Cause I'm on Twitter?" And he was like, "Absolutely." I was like,
Yeah. Just you wait. It's gonna be cool again, and then they're gonna be hopping on, and they're gonna be, like, trying to take it over, and it's like, "No, no, this is a
"No,
millennial
no."
platform."
Right.
Awesome.
Hilarious.
Okay, so last topic, I wanted to talk about, Sinners because Nina led the social marketing, and she had, like, talked about it on Twitter, and I reached out, and I was like, "Oh my god, please come to the podcast and talk about your work, like, what you did. Tell us what worked, what didn't work." I mean, we were talking about how the movie industry is having to change and be creative about how they're marketing things. And Sinners, that Variety article come out. Speaking of people
Yeah.
in the industry trying to like hold you back, right?
Mhm.
They came out with the article saying the movie opening like didn't make as much as the movie budget, making it seem as if it wasn't worth it for Ryan Coogler to get this deal that he got from
Right.
Warner Brothers. So Nina, please take over. Tell us everything that like you did, what you were thinking about when you were there, what your team, was able to do.
So I did the social media marketing behind Sinners for HBO Max. But before that, I was just a fan of Sinners. My team and I were coming in like, wow, we have to deliver something that's just as promising and extraordinary as this marketing for the film in theaters had been. There were some things that they did that really just made this marketing campaign next level. And I just want to highlight it and highlight the people that worked on it because that IMAX, lesson essentially that Ryan Coogler did
With
is really,
Kodak.
I think with Kodak, is what really just started the whole conversation, and I just thought it was really extraordinary because he's talking about something that he loves, but he's also meeting people where we're at, and I feel like that's kind of been a
Mhm,
theme with every topic we've talked about today. I
mhm,
think people are kind of tired of things feeling inaccessible. They
mhm,
want to learn, they want to be met where they're at. So instead of just having this elitist, like, filmmaker where he's just kind of like IMAX and, the different aspect ratios and this is how it is. He met people where they cared about it as well. And then he had this brilliant film to match his excitement. And I think that was the beginning that opened up the doors of the film. So sometimes you have marketing strategies for films, and then people see the film and they're like, I didn't like that. Like a film that came out this
mhm.
past weekend. I won't say any names, but I thought it had a pretty good marketing strategy. And then people saw the
Uh-huh.
film and they were just like, but Sinners had everything. It had the
Yeah.
marketing strategy, but the film lived up to the hype,
Mhm,
and it had all of the actors really, really excited about it. And everyone, the actors, the directors, everyone was finding ways to talk about this film. Ryan Coogler's really, really good about giving people a chance, and I think that that shows even when it comes to the marketing of the films. It starts with he's such a fascinating and exciting filmmaker, and so the
mhm,
people that he comes in contact with because he has that energy that it goes off into them. I feel like he creates a space for a film to do well
mhm, mhm.
because he is just this really cool person.
I think it was the first episode of this podcast spoke about the Ryan Coogler Kodak
Oh,
video
yeah.
because it was so brilliant. I thought it was such an accessible way to bring people into
Mhm.
the process of not only how movies are made, but then how they are shown, right? He was showing the differences between what an IMAX, screen will show you versus a regular one.
Mhm.
And then he also put that up with the sound and like what the sound mixing does and like what it means. And I think it was the first time that most people had seen movies spoken about in that way,
Yeah.
from someone that, like, really knew what he was talking about, but that wasn't couching his accent, and I thought that that was the most interesting part because it's like he didn't feel he had to code switch. He was still being himself and showing his genuine love for movies and for filmmaking, but then showing that, like, he dead ass knew everything that he was talking about.
Mhm.
And so he took us through the different, like, cameras, the different sounds and stuff, and then they put
Mhm.
that out, and it was, like, this 7-minute video that, like, went viral that
Right.
showed that people want to see this stuff, right? People wanna see you nerd out. So I, like, brought it up as a topic because I was like, "This is thought leadership. This is what it should be," right? It's like
Yes.
someone that knows exactly what they're talking about, bringing people into his process and what he knows and what he loves, and showing them something interesting that they hadn't seen before, right?
Mhm.
And so that was, like, what I thought was brilliant behind it. And then to see, like, the movie also do super well. And
Yeah.
when you saw, like, the differences in the screens, um, you could, like, recall that, like, lesson and
Yeah.
know that, like, he knew what he was talking about, and you saw the reasoning behind why he chose to film it in IMAX
Mhm.
versus shoot, in, like, a regular camera. And I think since then, most of us have started kind of gaining that knowledge. Now I know that, like, One Battle After Another was filmed on VistaVision, right? And then I know
Yeah.
that, Christopher Nolan is shooting it in IMAX, right? And
Mhm.
the whole idea of, like, the film was, like, miles long, it's like these new stats that we are able to talk about
Mhm.
because that context was given to us through Ryan Coogler,
Exactly.
and I thought
Yeah.
that that was, like, such a brilliant way to not just promote the movie, but to talk about movies overall. In terms of, like, the
Yeah.
social media marketing that y'all did at, like, HBO, how was that, like, different or the same?
Yeah, so we wanted to amplify what had already been done. And so for me, since I'm also a filmmaker and I
Mhm,
knew a lot about what he was doing, we wanted to keep the hunger people have to learn in our strategy. But we also wanted to keep like the fun. We created, like, a food menu for, like, the
mhm,
fish fry. So if you've seen the film, it's kind of like, "Oh, yeah." Just finding those little small moments in the film to make people want to go and rewatch the film because I
mhm,
want to see how that aspect ratio changes, and highlighting, like, the point when his aspect ratio changes in the film is when they open up the doors, and
mhm,
so in IMAX, that's when it goes into the entire, screen, and it's, like, really visually stunning to watch. You don't get that at home. But
mhm.
it's, like, cool it was cool to watch it at home because it's like, "Oh, I'm s you're proud of yourself," because it's like, I got to experience that the way that he intended it to. We made, like, little, like, club flyers as if, Snack and Smoke are gonna be here, and we did, clips of with Michael B. Jordan, when he talked about how he had to just the different things he did to prepare. And so we did like a side by side of Smoke and we did a side by side of Stack. So you could kind of see like the small mannerisms of what he
Mhm,
did. We highlighted the people behind the scenes of the film, like Ruth Carter, who is the costume designer, wardrobe stylist. We were able to get clips from the film that, we felt like had already kind of been performing on social and go a little bit more in depth with them, talk about things that were happening in um, Mississippi and in Chicago around that time. And so it's fun. I like social media marketing for films because there's just like little niches that you can find in a film
mhm.
and you can really explore on that.
Curious how you feel about fan cams, because a lot of what I saw for Sinners were just like, clips of like Haley saying the dirty word, and then kind of, clipping the music scene out.
Yes.
So how
Yeah.
that kind of like, plays into the social media strategy.
I love fan cams. I mean,
Hmm.
it's more of a stan thing. It came from like stan pages, but I
Hmm.
love them. I love to see fans taking control over marketing of things that they've seen as well. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, we started creating our own, but it still is a tool that was birthed because of these like people that enjoy watching a film or they enjoy an
Mhm.
artist.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is.
I think it's, one of those, like, novel ways for, fans to not just show their love for something, but also
Mhm.
be, like, super creative, right? I've
Period.
seen, one of the ones that, I talked about here was when Lionsgate had started hiring their,
Mhm,
fan cam creators to bring them in-house, and I, like,
mhm.
had wondered out loud, like, how long it would take for them to, for that to spread
Too
across the
long.
industry. And I
Yep.
saw that recently about a month ago, somebody that had done fan cams
Heated
for Heated
rivalry.
Rivalry got
Yep,
hired, and I was
yeah,
like,
I've been
"This is
following them
so."
on Twitter for a long ass time, and I was
Yeah,
like, I have to hire them." So when they
yeah,
tweeted last month that HBO Max
yeah,
hired them to create trailers, I was like, "Okay, I'm excited."
yeah, 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 and I
They're
think that's
creating
like,
trailers. They're not even doing, like, the social
yeah,
media. They're about to be in, like, the nitty-gritty when something comes out. Like, "We're gonna send all 8 episodes of this to you, and you
yeah,
come up with something." Like, that is, like, really special. You're getting to come in on a very exclusive side of filmmaking and the intersection of filmmaking and marketing,
mhm,
and I'm happy that it's happening because the fan cams, like I said, the Heated Rivalry person, I've been following them for a while.
mhm,
They're incredible, they're great at what they
mhm,
do, and this is where trailers have transcended to, and I think that we need
mhm,
both. I think sometimes when it comes to like marketing and adaptation, we're like, okay, well, it just needs to be this way. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, we can keep the traditional trailers, but we can also have the fan cams.
Yeah, I think so much of it coming from like your fans gives you the opportunity to show what's actually sticking with them, right? I had also called out that when One Battle After Another came out, they had clipped the Leo whistle and WB had it taken down for like IP purposes on Twitter. And I'm like, how stupid can you be when you are trying to get people to come out to see
Mhm.
another indie film that like sure has Leo behind it, but like still needs to get out there. I mean, Leo was
Mhm.
hustling his ass as well, right? He was showing up
Yep.
on the Travis and Jason Kelsey podcast so that people would come
Right.
out and watch the movie, you know?
Exactly. He's
It was
doing TikToks with,
exactly with yeah, Chase
yeah,
Infinity, right? So he's
yeah,
doing all
Chase
these new things that like he never, would have done before and never
Mhm.
needed to. But he also understands that the industry is changing, just like Timothée Chalamet, said. I think that that's like one of the things that like, movie marketing needs to like, get to. Like I see it in comparison to like sports marketing, right? Like sports marketers also have to like compete with like the people coming out with fan cams showing like the score like when something
Yeah, the highlight
brilliant
reel.
happened, right? And
Mhm.
instead of like getting that IP taken down, they've made it so their teams are competing against the people that were doing it organically themselves. We had
Mhm.
somebody on here talk about that. She works for the Spurs and she was like, We know that that's who we're competing against, but we also know that if we put it out first with the higher video quality, with like the
Yes.
exact moment and camera angle that we know makes the shot look best,
Mhm.
we're gonna get all those views. And that's exactly how movie studios should see it, where it's like you're competing against the creators. Like if you can't do it with your own people, then go hire those people, which they started doing. But then also like platform those people so that like your movie gets out. I don't think
Yeah.
it's like I think it's like a win-win-win situation for everybody involved. You get the
Mhm.
people hired, you get like real cool art coming out, and then you get people seeing the movies. You get those butts in
Yes,
theaters, which is like the
exactly.
whole
Like, get
point
those
of
in
like what the
theaters.
movie theater should be working for.
I think that they're becoming more flexible.
Mhm,
It's taken time, but they have. When you have films and you have creators like Timothy and like Ryan
mhm.
Coogler, who from the very beginning set it up to where it trickles down to even someone like me, that we have the opportunity to take more risk.
Would love to hear how
Yeah.
it kind of like works when you have the willing subject that's like willing to hop on and like do the
Yes.
content versus the ones that just don't.
Yeah. With Sinners, we could do what we wanted. We had
Mhm.
to run it past HBO. HBO then has to run it past, like, the film team, but by the time you get the green light and you actually can release something, it's 3 months later. And with something like this, when it comes to social media marketing, like, it
Mhm.
literally needs to happen in the moment almost. Like,
Yeah.
yes, a few hours to make sure that nothing is crazy, but it
Mhm.
needs to happen, like, that
Mhm.
day. Ryan Coogler, he was like, "Whatever you all do, I'm good with."
Mhm.
HBO just had to run it through a clearance to make sure legally nothing was wrong, and then
Mhm.
we could put it out. It was great. It just really gave us the freedom to, if we saw someone talking about something online. So when I know a lot of people started talking about Autumn being a DP, and even when we found out that she got nominated for an Oscar, you're immediately able to post like a clip
Mhm.
of hers or just like 5 stills in a carousel and be like, "Oh, the beautiful cinematography of Autumn."
I did feel like Sinners and like the promotion showed more of like the work of like the individuals, and it wasn't just like
Mhm.
Michael B. Jordan and it wasn't just, Ryan Coogler,
Yeah.
the two ones that we know, but it did
Right.
highlight a lot of the other people that were involved in it and are just as important in
Mhm.
making the film actually come out.
Exactly. It did, and people were fascinated by that. Ryan Coogler, funniest story, my very first short film, it starred Marshawn Lynch, who's also from
Mhm.
Oakland and is
Yeah.
also just like superstar at what he does. And
Yeah, I went to Berkeley
so
when he was when he was playing there,
oh,
so
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love him.
Okay, so cool.
Yeah.
So, people were giving me a really hard time on set. Like, I remember it wasn't supposed to rain, and out of nowhere, it started pouring down raining, and, like, my gaffer slipped and fell and was like, "We're gonna sue
Mhm.
you." And a whole bunch of them were like, "The last movie we did was Black Panther, and Ryan Coogler would never run a set like this. We shouldn't
Oh
even
my
be on a
god.
film set this small." Marshawn was like, "Okay, I got something for y'all." We wrapped. And he's like, "I gotta make a phone call, but I want everybody to stay right here." He comes back and he's like, "All right, I got Ryan on speakerphone. Ryan,
Ah!
I'm with a bunch of people that worked on Black Panther." And Ryan was like, "Oh, what's up, y'all? Thank you so much." And he's like, "Nah, don't thank them niggas. Sorry if I get worse."
No,
And
you're fine.
he's like, "They being disrespectful today, female," I hate the word female also, but
Yeah.
his words, "But they being disrespectful today, female director, and you will never need to employ these niggas again because they don't know how to respect. She's great. She's brilliant. She's this, she's that." And Ryan was like, "Hey, y'all, like, nah, that ain't cool. If I find
Yeah.
out it's issues again, it's a problem. Like, y'all not gonna be with me." And
Yeah.
Marshawn was like, "Bet that," and like hung up, and he
Oh
was
my
like, "Bet we
god.
won't have no problems no more."
Yeah, oh my god, I love that. That is those I mean, both of them are exactly who
Oh,
they seem to
okay,
be.
one, I'm like fangirling because you literally
Yeah.
like, "Wait, call him back. Let me say
Yeah,
hi."
right? You're like, "Can I talk to him?"
Right, but also, thank you. It was just
Mhm.
so crazy. But Ryan really cares about the treatment of women. He cares about the treatment of
Yeah.
everybody on his set. But just historically, women have a very hard time on film sets. And we have a hard time getting access. And when
Mhm.
we do finally get that access, we have a hard time being treated fairly, being treated with respect. And he cares about that. So that was 6 years ago that this incident happened, but,
Mhm.
just knowing even now that he wants to work with, women, he wants them to be the DPs and the, wardrobe stylists, and he wants them to have really important roles in his films, like
Mhm.
with Omni's character, and yeah, he's true about it. It's not just a facade, and, like, I've experienced it firsthand, and so I'm happy that other people are really seeing how much he cares about women in film.
Yeah, no, I mean, God, just even in the other Oscar nominated films where the female characters are either non-existent or aren't as fleshed out
You're
as
not
the
pushed
three
out.
main characters that he created for Sinners. Like
Yeah.
what a dearth of like, amazing female characters where they're
Mhm,
completely different. They all have different roles, which is like,
mhm.
hello, that's how women are in real
Yeah,
life. Um
exactly.
and they're not there to, like, push the narrative forward to make the main character's story work,
Mhm.
you know? So, yeah, that's an amazing experience for you.
He really does care, and so, I saw this, post yesterday about best supporting actresses and, like, how long they're on screen,
Mm,
and I think Wunmi's on screen only was it, like, 18 minutes?
mhm,
And everybody was like, "Whoa." It felt like she was on screen so much longer than that. Because of just how integral her character was to the film and how
mhm,
much we felt towards her and towards
mhm.
Annie. And it's just like, yeah, when you actually care, like you said about fleshing out a female character, like that is how you can feel about them. You have so much context to who they are as a character that their presence feels a lot larger than it is. And so, yeah. So anyways, yeah, I think it's just easy for the marketing behind Sinners to be as great as it is because Coogler cares.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so the lessons learned from that is that, um, I don't know, you can make your passions interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So a lesson I have is to take what people are saying about you here, the movie, and use that to then come up with your own creative ideas about how to post on your own and promote, your thing, right? Like, so the fact that, you see all these fan cams coming out about, particular
Mhm,
scenes then lets you know that, hey, people want to know more about this. And then because you have
mhm,
access to more information, then you can give that information saying like, hey, this is what Michael B. Jordan was doing. Like, this is how he separated the two characters, right?
mhm,
And this is what Ryan Coogler was thinking when he was like filming this. And this is the cinematographer that people are talking about right now. And really putting it in the context of like the art, but then also the film to give people more details on the information
yeah,
that they're, looking for. Which is,
yeah,
really cool to kind of have that access to, that content that otherwise wouldn't exist unless you were paying attention to what people are talking about.
totally. You're really good at this.
Yeah. I've had more experience. Okay, so a couple takeaways from like everything is just how important it is to try to create more organic methods of marketing
Mhm.
through like an ambassadors program, through paying attention to like the fan cams, through being like honest. I think one thing I didn't mention in the Timothy Chalamet thing was like he was being honest and he's getting pilloried for that. And then we wonder why artists don't want to have opinions about things, right?
Mhm.
Like we have that like famous viral clip of Tina Fey saying that like you reach a certain level of like fame and all of a sudden you can't have opinions because people are going to come at you, you know? And this is exactly what's happening to him. Even though what he said is true and why he's talking about it is because he doesn't want that to then happen to movies, which is starting to happen, right? We talked about last week that like, AMC is talking about having like premium pricing for like seats, right? And it's like if it's becoming less accessible to people, then like the people that are going to be affected by it, like the movie stars, should be talking about it to the
Yes.
people that they're, trying to get in front of. And I think
Mhm.
that's what he was, trying to talk about. And that's one of the lessons here where it's like go to where the people are, see what they're saying, and then figure out what you can do to fix the situation. Um,
Yeah.
but that requires listening to people and not just assuming that you know best because you've been doing it.
And also for social media to not be so judgmental towards celebrities because they're people too. There's going to be slip ups, but as long as it's not
Mhm,
outrightly offensive, like
mhm.
just chill out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know. Like, let's bring back people having opinions and being able to like say things. Not you don't have to get
Yeah.
behind everything, you know?
Like I just don't want it to become so much like media training where actors
Yeah.
and people become robots. Like that's not what we want. We want them to still be real people. So yeah, just but the best way we can do that is by like just chilling out a little bit. Like
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nina, for coming on the podcast. Please let
thank
let people know
you.
where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter. It's Nina Serafina. And you can find me on Instagram under the same name, except that one has 3 A's at the end. And yes, and look for my films. I've got a few shorts if you want to watch the one with Marshawn Lynch and web series and things like that on my YouTube page. It is Nina Lee.
Great. And then you can follow me at Sonia Bushes everywhere and the podcast at Meme Team Pod on YouTube and then Meme Team Podcast on Spotify and TikTok. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.